And we're back for another season of Mysterious Studies. I have a teacup with me, trying to make this recording session a bit less nerve-wracking and a bit more enjoyable. Well, it is enjoyable, but it's always that thing of when you've taken a break of doing something, even though you enjoy it, then when you want to get back to it, just taking that first step and actually doing it again can almost feel a bit scary. Like, can I do this again? Is it gonna be worthwhile? Is it gonna be interesting? Is it gonna be... There's all kinds of these swirls that the mind goes into. And that's actually exactly the kind of point of this season of Mysterious Studies. I want to really go deeper into also embracing those swirls that my mind goes into, but also kind of poking at them and looking inwards in a way where I allow myself to lose the thread. I let my mind be as open and like going all over the place that it does. And if we want to give some structure for this first episode, I can just introduce the idea that I have for this, at least a few of the first episodes in this season, is I want to offer my skeptic's guide to existential frameworks or existential perspectives, maybe. Because I've been really, during this last year or years, I've been experimenting with how does it shift the way I experience myself and my life, my place in the world, if I use a different framework of how I think about it, how I see myself and life and the world. And of course, I grew up with that framework where many other frameworks or perspectives had been pushed into the shadow realm or unconscious or just denial. That we have the scientific materialism, which is this exists. Those things are just like we can't prove them with some kind of physical means. And that's something I spoke about more in the previous season, so I'm not gonna go deeper into that. But that is in my background. That's something that's I'm bringing with me because that's how I grew up. That's like the wiring that I have, the foundation for my way of thinking. And that has been the reason why me, as a skeptic, I had to also challenge and question that wiring that I was brought up with, because the true skeptic is also skeptical about their own skepticism. And that can be seen in many ways. So when I grew up with, for example, at school, when we had some lesson, I vividly remember where we had an introduction to concepts from astronomy. Astronomy, I guess that's how you pronounce it in English. And there was an interesting paragraph in the textbook where there was just shortly describing how, oh, in previous times humans have used astrology to try and kind of connect to these planetary bodies in a way where they're related to a human life, but that approach is just superstition, total and utter superstition, because we're not related to these things or these bodies of these spheres floating around in space. It's just they're just like these physical objects, or maybe gas, maybe rock, maybe ice. That's the physical reality. That's all there is. And that paragraph in that book just stayed with me because I remember feeling like just that sense of total and utter assurance and a kind of an egoic sense of holding the one and only truth just stuck with me like, something about this that just kind of rubs me the wrong way. It's like, fine, you can say it. You can focus on the physical matter and that aspect of everything, but it still got me thinking like, what about all of those other things, like how we are experiencing things, our ideas, thoughts, emotions, things that I can't really like take it here, and I can't take it like it's, oh, this teacup this is a physical object and this is like my thought. I can't do that with my thought. It's really it's really powerful. It affects me a lot. Like that whole idea that these fears that are floating with us, traveling in space in this grander scale, they have absolutely no relation to us except that they have these physical properties or these material properties. It feels like off to me, like there's a step missing, or just a lack of self-reflection, a lack of self-awareness about where are you coming from, why do you think that way, is that the only possible way of thinking? And I wasn't fully aware of that at the time. It was just a nagging feeling that I brought with me from that experience of, like, most people, at least my age, growing up, or my setting where I grew up, like we went to school and had these experiences of reading paragraph after paragraph of this is it, this is it, this is the truth, this is not, this is not, this is not, this is it. And another example was when I had read the history books. I grew up in Finland, and we had a history, uh, a course that was about the kind of civil war that happened in Finland after the Russian times. Well, the kind of, now it's hard to describe it in English because I studied those things in Finnish, in Swedish mainly, because I went to a Swedish speaking school in Finland, so it's a big mix of languages for me. But there was so clear that the story, the narrative of the prevailing winning side was the one that was taught in the history books. Because in Finland there was a time where they were divided into reds and the whites. And the reds, this is really, really reductive and to simplify it, but just to get to the point at some point, the reds were people who had been more on the side of the communists and were for having that ideology that we as workers, we are like, we want to stand up for all our rights, and against like the ruling class who were holding the power, or they were the whites, the people who then were owning land and so on. So there was this kind of this civil war, and also later on a lot of tension under the surface that's actually not that far back in history. And in the history books, it's that side that kind of won. The whites, they wrote those history books. Maybe not that guy, but like that prevailing wiring, that way of thinking about those times was angled. And when I wrote the assignment, that was just based on the history books because that I had in school, because that's the assignment. Like, oh, give me a summary, write a summary about that civil war or like those times. And I wrote that, and I showed it to my grandfather, who had some experience of those times, or at least the times after, right after, and he was really offended. he was so offended because he had been more on that side of the Reds in the way he was thinking about things, his view, his perspective, his angle towards the whole matter. I was so offended because there was one sentence in my history books that was, if the red side would have won, then Finland would have had no chance at standing up against the communist regime, because they would have cooperated with that communist regime. And he was so offended by that because on that side, I guess there's the other perspective was that they lost their rights. They lost a lot. And then say what you will about who can speculate what could have happened or so on, but it was a very, very valuable moment for me to realize that these books that I read, these things that I'm supposed to write assignments about and summaries about, is a fraction of reality. It's not even a fraction of reality, it's a perspective, one perspective. And that's one existential kind of perspective or framework on what it's about, what that event, those times were about. And for this kind of long-winded introduction is valuable for me to make, to kind of provide the background to, based on a few personal examples, why I've been moving more and more towards experimenting with a lot of different existential frameworks and where I'm coming from, my whole approach to it. And even as I've gone into areas that were previously kind of taboo because they were too woo or like not valid in that scientific materialist framework, I also am skeptical about things that exist within these woo frameworks, because it doesn't really matter what the framework is. What I arrived at is it's more about how, well, pretty obvious where I'm going, right? How you use it, what your approach is, and how dogmatic you're about it. You can be dogmatic about everything and anything. You can be dogmatic about saving the world. What does that mean, saving the world, even? But I hope you get the picture that I'm painting. So that is what I mean with a skeptic's guide. A skeptic's guide to existential frameworks. It's me coming in as, or stepping up as, someone who is never really totally fully tied to any one perspective, because I'm the one who is meant to, I feel like I am here to straddle those paradoxes, or to just walk on that little narrow tightrope walk where I'm trying to balance on like this, a bit of that. Oh, okay, that was like, that wasn't actually resonating. Then I like just allowing myself to be open to take in different perspectives and let them coexist, and all at the same time letting myself be comfortable for a while where I find something is useful, where I find something is meaningful, where it clearly has meaning or provides me with a new approach or tool set or ability to talk about something, provides me with a new type of language, a way of understanding myself and my place in the world. I'll take that. I'll take that with me and I'll use it. But I'm not tied to it. If it proves to be not so useful anymore, or there comes another perspective that is even more useful, then maybe that will take its place. And that's also a way of seeing life, seeing everything, seeing myself as a part of this process of unfolding where I am me the way I am right now, and that is, I'm something, but it's also a continuous process where we are evolving, and just letting yourself evolve in also that whole existential dimension of who you are, who you feel yourself to be, or how you think, letting yourself test out different ways of thinking or seeing yourself and the world. And it has, for me, it's felt like a big relief to be like, oh, I don't have to align myself with this. This is my side, and this is what I'm fighting for, and I have to just stay here on this side, but more be like, yeah, I can see the value here, but we could also take a bit of that. And all the ways I've been criticizing or maybe pointing out some flaws in scientific materialism, there's a lot of value there too. We can take some of that. Like everything can have its own value. The thing that I was critical about was how that has been, like in my experience, a way to hush up or silence any other possible valuable frameworks or perspectives. That's what I was critical about. So it's more about the approach. So yeah, it's kind of an introduction to this whole series of my Skeptic's Guide to Existential Frameworks, where I want to talk about my experience with such lenses as human design, gene keys, astrology, maybe tarot, and yeah, we'll see how it evolves. And maybe it's a season of, maybe it kind of unfolds over time. In that's the challenge for me when I want to really want to do this podcast series, but I have to always build in some kind of buffer of openness where that mutable way that I function is allowed its space to kind of play and getting inspired to do something that maybe wasn't what I was planning or isn't consistent. But there's still a background idea, like in the background there is still an intended direction. And in this series, the intended direction is to provide the space for myself mostly where I can talk about my experiences with frameworks that have proved very valuable in ways that those more traditional frameworks couldn't be, or they couldn't offer those exact things or languages or lenses. So it's just basically to expand the view and open it up a bit more. That's kind of, I feel that's my job in this podcasting sphere. So welcome to this new season of Mysterious Studies, and I think that's all for now. I'll see you in the next one if you're curious to continue this journey with me. I'm also very excited about opening up sessions and some new ways where I want to like directly meet with people if they are resonating with my approach or my perspective. Then we could also meet and talk about these things connected to your life and your situation. But maybe it can be helpful to like listen, take in, and really feel into my approach, my perspective first, if it's something that feels could provide value for you. And also, I guess in the podcast, I'm letting myself go into the woods because this is my thing, my space for rambling. So maybe it's a bit more rambling than a session would be more focused on you kind of sharing your current experience, and then we would go from there. So it's maybe not totally representative to listen to the podcast, but I guess you still get a feel of who I am and how our interaction might be. So that is also kind of one purpose of this podcast. I have the feeling of, or the need, or the wish, the intention to get my voice out there so it exists there if someone would resonate and get some value from it. And I also enjoy doing this, so it could be a win-win. But take care until the next time. Oh, forgot all about my tea, so this is a good way to end this episode. Cheers.